Imagine waking up every single Tuesday to the sound of your property being smashed apart. Not once, not twice, but over and over like clockwork. And now picture the person doing it isn't some random stranger, it's your own HOA Karen, the kind of neighbor who lives for rules and control. She thought she could bully me by turning my trash can into her personal demolition target. But what she didn't know was that I had a plan. A plan so simple, so perfectly legal. It turned her own $60,000 SUV into the real trash. It always began the same way. The sharp crack of plastic shattering, the screech of steel brushing against asphalt, and the low growl of a luxury engine pulling away like nothing happened. And every Tuesday morning, right at 6:15, my trash can was turned into roadkill. And every Tuesday morning, I stood there on my driveway, coffee mug in hand, staring at the wreckage like some suburban war victim. Asterisk, what started out as bad luck quickly revealed itself for what it really was: harassment. My HOA, Karen, the woman who lived to remind the neighborhood of every obscure rule she could twist to her liking, had made me her personal target. What she didn't know was that I wasn't about to play the victim. Asterisk, picture this. Dawn just breaking the street. Still washed in that pale blue glow before sunrise, a pearl-white Escalade creeps by, the kind of SUV that costs more than most people's college tuition. Instead of following the wide-open lane, it veers deliberately toward the curb. The bumper clips my plastic trash bin, and with a sickening crack, the can bursts open. Coffee grounds, cereal boxes, and greasy pizza crusts scatter across my driveway like confetti from a parade no one asked for. Asterisk, and then she drives off, slow, smug, not even bothering to glance back. That's when it hit me this wasn't an accident. This was a game. Asterisk, my name's David Harper. I'm 44 years old, an electrician by trade, and the single dad of 2 kids. Emily, 16, who's halfway between teenager sarcasm and college. Dreams, and Jacob, 14, who still thinks every problem in life can be solved with video games and pizza rolls. After my divorce 3 years ago, I bought a corner lot house in Pinewood Estates. Clean, cookie-cutter neighborhood, lawns trimmed with military precision. Mailboxes painted in one of exactly 3 HOA-approved shades of beige. I thought it would be a fresh start. Safe place for the kids, predictable streets, decent schools. Asterisk what? I didn't figure on was Karen. Asterisk now. Her real name is Linda McAllister, but if you met her, you'd call her Karen too. 51 years old, widowed, no kids, retired early from a bank manager job. The type of person who memorizes every HOA bylaw like it's scripture. She doesn't hold an official position on the HOA board, but she walks the streets with a clipboard as if she's the neighborhood sheriff. People cross the street to avoid her when she's on her patrols. Asterisk. And of course she drives that Escalade gleaming spotless like it rolled out of a car commercial. The thing takes up more space than some living rooms. Asterisk the first time it happened, I really did think it was just a mistake. I was getting the kids ready for school, coffee brewing in the kitchen when I heard the noise. That snap like a tree branch breaking in a storm. I rushed out to see my brand new trash can, $25 from Home Depot. Bought just the week before, split in half. Garbage spilled across the driveway. Asterisk, Karen rolled down her window, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. My dear, these streets are so narrow. I hope you weren't too attached to that old thing. Asterisk old thing? I just bought it, but I swallowed my anger. Told myself it was a fluke. Accidents happen, right? Except it didn't stop. By the end of that week, she'd done it 3 more times. Always the same time, always the same smirk when she slowed down just long enough to make eye contact. My kids started to notice too. Emily would groan, "Dad, why is that woman always hitting our trash can?" Bubbo. Jacob would press his face against the window, watching like it was some bizarre reality show. Asterisk, by Tuesday of the next week, I couldn't deny it anymore. She was doing it on purpose. Asterisk, Mrs. Thompson, my elderly neighbor across the street, confirmed it for me. She pulled me aside one morning, her voice hushed like she was sharing state secrets. She has plenty of room on the other side. She swerves close to your can every time she wants you to move it. Asterisk, that was when I realized this wasn't about space on the road. It was about control. My corner lot meant the city ordinance required me to place my trash within 3 feet of the curb for pickup. Perfectly legal. But Karen didn't like it being there. And if Karen didn't like something, she'd find a way to make your life miserable until you bent to her will. Asterisk, I tried reasoning with her. Caught her during one of her afternoon walks, clipboard in hand. Day about the trash can situation. Asterisk, she cut me off with that syrupy smile. David, I know you're new to community living.
These streets weren't designed for oversized containers blocking traffic.
Maybe you should consider placement timing adjustments. Asterisk, placement timing adjustments. As if the garbage truck was going to reschedule its entire route just to please her. Asterisk, I went home fuming that night. Sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and started digging through city ordinances, HOA bylaws, anything that would tell me I was in the right. And sure enough, I was. Trash cans within 3 feet of the curb. Nothing about timing adjustments. Nothing about Karen's opinion. Asterisk, but knowing I was right didn't stop her. By the end of the month, I'd replaced 4 trash cans. $90 down the drain. My kids were embarrassed, my mornings were ruined, and the neighborhood was starting to whisper. Asterisk, the worst part? She knew exactly what she was doing. She'd started smirking during her morning accidents, holding eye contact through the windshield like it was a game of chicken. Asterisk, that's when I knew this wasn't going to stop on its own. Asterisk something had to change. Asterisk, and if Karen thought she was the only one in this neighborhood who could play games, she was about to learn a very expensive lesson. The funny thing about people like Karen is that once they see you bend even just a little, they convince themselves they own you, and if you refuse to bend, well, then you've declared war. Asterisk, by the second month, my driveway looked like a trash can graveyard, 5 of them gone, each one mangled in a new and creative way, split down the middle, wheels popped off, lids hanging like broken jaws. I'd stopped buying the cheap plastic kind and upgraded to the so-called heavy-duty bins. Didn't matter. Karen's Escalade tore through them like tissue paper. Asterisk, neighbors started talking. That's what happens in a tightly packed subdivision, where everyone's lawn looks the same and gossip travels faster than WI-Fi. Asterisk, maybe you should just keep your cans in the garage. One suggested, or put them out 5 minutes before the truck arrives. Another said, easy advice when it wasn't their cans getting crushed. Easy advice when they didn't have to wrangle 2 kids, a job. They're in a garbage truck that showed up anywhere between 6 and 9 a.m. Asterisk. But here's the thing that really burned me. Instead of people being mad at Karen for driving like a demolition derby champion, they were side-eyeing me. As if I was the problem. That's Karen's gift. She poisons the well before you even realize what's happening. Asterisk, one Saturday afternoon, while I was mowing the lawn, Karen strolled over a clipboard. In hand, sunglasses perched on her nose like some low-budget celebrity. She leaned against her Escalade, smiling that thin, tight smile that never reached her eyes. Asterisk, you know, David, she said, voice dripping with fake sweetness. It's not really neighborly to keep making such a mess on trash day. Yeah, people are starting to complain. Asterisk, I shut off the mower, sweat dripping down my back, and just stared at her. You mean people are complaining about you running over my cans? Asterisk, she laughed a sharp, brittle sound. Accidents happen. Your attitude, that's a choice. You're new here, you don't want to make enemies. Asterisk, and with that, she climbed into her SUV and drove away, leaving the smell of her perfume and exhaust in the air. Asterisk, that night, Emily found me hunched over my desk, scrolling through city websites, searching for anything I could use. She leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. Asterisk, Dad, why do you let her get to you? Just ignore her. Asterisk, I rubbed my eyes. It's not just about the trash, Em. It's about control. If she wins this, she'll never stop. It's trash. Cans, tomorrow it's our lawn, or the way you park your car, or the color of our mailbox. People like her, they need someone to bully. Asterisk, Jacob chimed in from the couch, controller in hand. So bully her back? Asterisk, simple words from a 14-year-old. But they stuck in my head? Asterisk, the next week things got worse. Di woke up Tuesday morning to not 1 but 2 cans destroyed. She'd managed to clip mine and Mrs. Thompson's across the street in one swoop. Mrs. Thompson, meh, bless her soul, shuffled out in her robe, shaking her fist like an angry cartoon grandma. But Karen just waved, rolled her window down, and called, out. So sorry, Margaret. These roads are so tight. Before driving off, asterisk, that was the breaking point. Margaret had lived there for 30 years. She baked cookies for the block every Christmas. If Karen was bold enough to start targeting her, then no one was safe. Asterisk, the neighborhood split into 2 camps after that. People who whispered that Karen had gone too far. Camp 2, people who were too afraid of her to say anything and instead blamed me for stirring the pot. Asterisk, and in the middle of it all, me standing on my driveway with yet another busted trash bin, watching my kids drag black garbage bags back into the garage to keep raccoons away. Asterisk, I remember standing there, hands on my hips, and thinking, enough, asterisk. So I started planning, asterisk, not openly, and not in a way that anyone could see, but in my head the blueprint began to form. If Karen wanted a game, I'd give her one. Only this time I'd be the one pulling the strings. Asterisk, I didn't know yet exactly how. I'd do it. But one thing was certain, Karen's Escalade wasn't going to survive the next round. It was where I stopped being the victim. Asterisk, the week after Karen totaled Mrs. Thompson's bin, I came home to find a bright yellow paper taped to my front door. HO violation notice. Proper storage of refused containers. I stared at it, reading the words over and over, my jaw tightening. Asterisk, improper storage. My cans were lined up exactly where the city code said they could be 3 feet from the curb, wheels facing the house. But the letter, no doubt written by Karen herself, claimed I was lowering the aesthetic standards of the neighborhood. Asterisk, I crumpled the notice in my fist and tossed it in the recycling. Karen wasn't satisfied with just smashing my property. She wanted it on record that I was the problem. Asterisk, that night at dinner. Emily sighed as she stabbed at her pasta. Asterisk, she's never going to stop, Dad. You realize that, right? Asterisk, Jacob chimed in. Then we need to stop her first. Simple words, but they hit me like a hammer. After the kids went to bed, staring at the wreckage of my latest trash can. Cracks spiderwebbed across the lid, the plastic. Bent in ways it wasn't supposed to bend. And that's when the idea came. Asterisk, Karen loved smashing things. Fine. Let her try to smash this asterisk the next day. During my lunch break, I drove down to the local hardware store. I wandered the aisles, picking up supplies, plywood, rebar, bags of concrete mix. The cashier gave me a curious look as I piled everything onto the counter. Building something? He asked. Asterisk, I smiled thinly. Yeah, you could say that. Asterisk over. The next few nights, I worked like a man possessed. The kids helped in small ways, holding flashlights, mixing concrete, handing me tools. Emily raised an eyebrow when she realized what I was building. Asterisk, Dad, are you seriously making a trash can out of concrete? Asterisk, I wiped sweat from my forehead. Not exactly. Making a concrete shell. It'll look like a regular can from the street, but underneath, it's a tank. Asterisk, she shook her head, half amused, half concerned. You know, if this goes wrong, she's going to lose it, right? Asterisk, that's the idea. Asterisk, it took 3 nights. I cut plywood into panels, built a box frame, poured concrete into each side. When it cured, I bolted the panels together around a reinforced steel cylinder. Result was heavy, ugly, and practically indestructible. I painted it black, attached the lid and wheels from one of my destroyed bins, and rolled it to the curb. From 10 feet away, you'd never guess. It looked like a normal trash can, but up close, it weighed more than 100 pounds. Asterisk, the morning of its debut, I didn't sleep. I brewed coffee at 5 a.m. and sat by the window, blinds cracked, waiting. Asterisk at 6:12. Like clockwork, headlights glowed down the street. Karen's Escalade cruised slowly, music thumping faintly from her stereo. My heart pounded. Asterisk, she swerved just slightly toward the curb, like she always did. Tires screeched, plastic crunched, only this time it wasn't plastic. Asterisk, the sound was different, a deep metallic thud that rattled through the street. Her Escalade jolted like it had hit a wall. The bumper scraped, the grill cracked, and I swear I saw her head snap forward before she slammed the brakes. Asterisk, for a second, there was silence. Asterisk, then Karen threw her door open, heels clicking angrily on the asphalt. She marched around to the front of her SUV, stared at the dented grill, and then at my trash can. She kicked it once. It didn't budge. From behind my blinds, I bit down on a grin. She stormed back to her car, peeled off down the road, and left my concrete bin standing tall and touched. Undefeated. That was the moment I knew I'd finally shifted the balance. But I also knew Karen wasn't done. Not by a long shot. That followed. Asterisk, the morning after her Escalade kissed my concrete can. Karen didn't just drive off quietly, no. She came back later that afternoon, clipboard in hand. Sunglasses perched like armor on her face. I was in the driveway, washing Jacob's bike, when she strutted up like a lawyer on a mission. Asterisk, you can't keep that thing on the curb, she snapped, gesturing at my bin. Asterisk, it's a trash can, I said evenly. Asterisk, her lips curled. No, it's a hazard. It's dangerous. And it's a violation of Section 4, subsection C of the HOA guidelines. Asterisk, I wiped my hands on a rag. Funny, I thought Section 4 was about lawn maintenance. Asterisk, her eyes narrowed. You think you're clever, don't you? Asterisk, I didn't answer. She scribbled something down on her clipboard, tore the page, and slapped it against my chest. Another violation noticed. Asterisk, this was Karen's way of fighting back. Not with fists, not with apologies, but with paperwork, rules, and intimidation. And she wielded them like weapons. Asterisk, that evening. As the kids and I sat down for dinner, Emily pointed to the envelope sitting on the counter. Another letter. Asterisk. Yep, I said. D. Violation for having a non-standard receptacle. Asterisk, Jacob. Snorted non-standard. Dad, that thing survived a 6,000-pound SUV. That's more than standard. Asterisk, we laughed. I felt the tension rising. Karen wasn't going to stop. The concrete can had embarrassed her, and people like her don't forgive embarrassment. They escalate. Sure enough, the next few weeks became a parade of petty attacks. First, a mailbox mysteriously got knocked over. The screws looked like they'd been deliberately loosened. Then came the HOA fines, $50 here, $100 there for parking violations that didn't exist. She even tried to claim my lawn was overgrown when I'd literally mowed it the day before. It was exhausting, but here's the thing about Karen. The more she fought, the more she exposed herself. Neighbors started whispering.
Some rolled their eyes when she stomped around with her clipboard.
Others
Admitted their own horror stories, late-night calls about porch lights being too bright, lines for toys left in the yard, even nasty notes.
about paint colors. Karen wasn't the voice of the community. She was the tyrant choking it. One Saturday morning, I walked outside to find her parked directly in front of my house. She leaned against her Escalade, arms folded. Morning, I said, forcing a smile. She didn't return it.
You're
going to regret this little stunt? I tilted my head. What stunt? Her jaw tightened. Don't play dumb. That stone block you call a trash can? You think you've won? All you've done is dig yourself a bigger hole. She climbed back into her SUV, slammed the door, and roared off. The smell of her exhaust lingered long after she was gone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing her words echo. Bigger hole. What did she mean? Was she planning to take me to court? Was she talking about the HOA board? Or was it something worse? 2 days later, I got my answer. At exactly 6:15 a.m., I heard the familiar rumble of her Escalade. I rushed to the window, heart pounding. She slowed down in front of my house, headlights cutting across the street. At this time, she didn't just swerve, she aimed. The SUV accelerated, and the sound of impact was deafening. The front of her Escalade smashed into my concrete bin so hard that it lifted slightly off the ground before slamming back into place. Shards of plastic from her grille exploded across the asphalt. A cloud of steam hissed from under her hood. I stood frozen, coffee mug in hand. Da-da-da-da-da-da, as Karen stumbled out of her SUV, clutching her forehead. She staggered toward the bin, screaming incoherently, kicking at it with her heels until one snapped. The bin didn't move an inch. Neighbors' doors opened. Lights flicked on. People started gathering, whispering, pointing at the scene. Karen's Escalade sat in the street, bumper hanging, hood crumpled, fluids leaking. And there was my trash. Can untouched, standing tall like some kind of monument. One neighbor muttered, "She finally lost it." Another laughed. Someone else pulled out their phone and started recording. Karen realized the eyes were on her. I straightened, smoothed her hair, and shouted, "This is vandalism." He set me up. All eyes turned to me. And for the first time, I didn't feel fear, felt control. Because I knew the truth. I hadn't set her up. I just stopped being her victim. And now, with half the neighborhood watching. Karen had destroyed her own $60,000 SUV in front of everyone. This wasn't just my victory, it was the beginning of her downfall. The morning Karen rammed her Escalade into my concrete bin didn't just shake the neighborhood. It cracked open the carefully controlled image she had spent years building. The police showed up within 10 minutes, and blue lights painted the street while neighbors gathered in clusters, some still in pajamas, whispering like it was a block party they never wanted to miss. Officer Daniels, a tall man with a calm voice. I walked up to me first. Double quotes, "Sir, can you tell me what happened?" "Here." I gestured to the wrecked SUV, coolant dripping onto the pavement. "She's been hitting my trash can for weeks, so I replaced it with concrete. This morning she did that." Karen, standing a few feet away with her arms crossed, immediately cut in. "This man is lying. He's harassed me for months." "That block is a weapon. He's trying to kill me." Daniels raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, it looks like you drove into a stationary object on a public street." Karen's face flushed crimson. She jabbed a finger toward me. "He's manipulating you. You don't know what he's like. He's violent, unstable." Karen, I interrupted softly. "There are cameras." Her eyes snapped toward me, and that's when I knew I had her. Because last week, after the second accidental bump, I'd installed a small security camera above my garage. It had recorded everything: her SUV veering, the acceleration, the deliberate impact. Daniels followed my gaze. "Cameras." I nodded. "I'll show you the footage." Karen froze. For the first time since this feud began, she had nothing to say. Her lips parted, then shut, then parted again like a fish gasping for air. The officers examined the damage, took photos, and asked me to email the video. Karen tried to protest, but her voice wavered now. She knew. Everyone knew. The next day, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. Not because they wanted justice, but because Karen had been their enforcer for years. Without her, they were exposed. Without her, the rules they weaponized against families like mine lost their sting. I showed up with a USB stick in my pocket, and my kids by my side. The room buzzed with tension. Half the neighborhood had heard by now. Asterisk, the president cleared his throat. We've received troubling reports regarding one of our members. Karen, would you like to respond? Asterisk. Karen launched into a monologue about safety, about vandalism, about how I was a menace. But when I slid the USB across the table and the footage lit up the projector screen, her voice cracked. Asterisk, there it was. In full color, her Escalade swerving, accelerating, smashing into my concrete can. Neighbors gasped. Someone chuckled. The silence afterward was deafening. The president adjusted his glasses. Karen, this is indefensible. Asterisk, she stood abruptly, chair screeching against the floor. This is a setup. You're all against me, don't you see? He's poisoned this community. But her words bounced off walls that no longer belonged to her. That night she showed up at my doorstep. No SUV this time, she was on foot, hair wild, eyes glassy. Emily answered the door and I stepped in quickly, shielding her. Asterisk. Karen's voice was low, frantic. Do you have any idea what you've done? They're going to remove me. They're going to fine me. My insurance won't cover the damage. You've ruined me. For a moment I almost felt pity. Almost, you ruined yourself, Karen, I said quietly. Asterisk, she glared at me. Then at the bin still standing tall by the curb. She spat at the ground, turned and stormed off into the night. Asterisk, 2 weeks later. Certified letter arrived. Karen was removed from the HOA board. The fines she had dished out for years were suddenly under review. Several neighbors even started banding together to file complaints against her. Asterisk, but the final blow didn't come from me. It came from her own insurer. After reviewing the police report and my footage, they denied her claim, repairing her Escalade, over $12,000 out of her pocket. Asterisk, and in the middle of it all, I received an unexpected phone call. Asterisk, Mr. Thompson? This is Officer Daniels, just wanted to let you know. DA's office has decided to file reckless driving charges. With the video evidence, it's pretty clear-cut. Asterisk, for a moment, I just sat there in silence, the phone warm against my ear. Asterisk, Karen wasn't just losing her board position. She wasn't just paying fines or covering car repairs. She was facing criminal charges. Asterisk, the woman who had made my life miserable, who had stalked the neighborhood like a self-appointed queen, was finally facing consequences no rulebook could shield her from. Asterisk, and as I hung up the phone, this battle wasn't just about me. It was about everyone she'd ever bullied. My neighbors' relieved smiles, their quiet thank yous, their laughter when they saw her walking instead of driving, all of it told me the same thing. Asterisk. The reign of HOA Karen was ending. Asterisk. But there was still one more chapter too. Right. The neighborhood had grown strangely quiet without Karen's SUV prowling the streets. For years, that metallic rumble had been the soundtrack of our mornings, punctuated by the clatter of trash cans and the sting of her complaints. But now, the silence was almost peaceful. Asterisk, when trash day rolled around again. I stood at my driveway, coffee in hand, watching the truck lift my concrete bin with ease. The driver gave me a nod and a grin word had spread. The bin wasn't just a bin anymore. It was a monument, a symbol of standing up to the bully who had terrorized us all. But Karen wasn't gone yet. The charges had stuck. The insurance company refused her claim. The HOA board voted her out, and the bylaws she had twisted were suddenly rewritten with fairness in mind. Still, she clung to the scraps of her old life, filing appeal after appeal, knocking on doors, begging neighbors to see reason. No one answered anymore. The breaking point came in court. Asterisk, I sat on the wooden bench. Emily beside me, my kids coloring quietly in the back. Karen walked in, no longer the sharp, commanding woman she once pretended to be. She looked smaller. Somehow her tailored clothes replaced with something wrinkled, her hair hastily tied back. Asterisk, her lawyer shuffled papers nervously. My attorney leaned close. She's going to try to settle. Don't say a word until the judge speaks. Asterisk, the judge, an older man with a steady voice. Read through the case file. Reckless driving, property damage, repeated harassment. When he glanced up, his expression said it all. He wasn't impressed. Asterisk, Karen's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client wishes to resolve this matter privately. She understands mistakes were made and would like to offer a settlement to Mr. Thompson. Asterisk, the room stilled. Karen's eyes darted toward me, pleading, but I kept my gaze steady. Asterisk, the judge nodded. Proceed. Asterisk, her lawyer cleared his throat. Ms. Reynolds will compensate Mr. Thompson for the damages and legal fees totaling $12,000. Asterisk, whispers spread through the courtroom. My heart thumped, not from greed but from vindication. This wasn't about money. It was about the acknowledgement, the record that she had finally been held accountable. Asterisk, the judge banged his gavel. So ordered. Asterisk, Karen slumped back in her chair. The fight had drained out of her. Asterisk, when it was over, I walked past her without a word. She looked up at me, eyes rimmed red. You don't understand what you've done to me, she whispered. Asterisk, I paused, then leaned down slightly. No, Karen, you don't understand what you did to yourself. I left her there, the echoes of my footsteps trailing behind. The weeks that followed felt lighter. Kids rode bikes without being scolded for blocking the sidewalk. Families planted flowers without receiving passive-aggressive fines. Neighbors waved at me, some stopping to thank me for doing what they hadn't dared. Asterisk, one evening, Emily and I sat on the porch watching the sun dip behind the houses. The air was warm, filled with the sound of crickets instead of Karen's shouting. Asterisk, you think it's really over? Emily asked softly. Asterisk, I sipped my coffee, smiling faintly. Maybe not forever. People like her don't disappear. But this chapter, it's over. Asterisk, we sat in silence, content in the calm we'd earned, and that's how it ended. The woman who thought she ruled the neighborhood, who believed she was untouchable, finally met the weight of her own actions. All it took was one stubborn neighbor. One concrete trash can, and the truth caught on camera. Asterisk, if you've ever dealt with a Karen, you know they thrive on fear and silence. But the moment you stand your ground, their power crumbles. Asterisk so. To anyone watching this story, don't let bullies dictate your peace. Don't let self-appointed enforcers decide your worth. Stand up, even if it feels small. Sometimes the smallest stand, a trash can, a camera. Quiet no more is all it takes to topple a giant. Asterisk, and if you enjoyed this story, stick around, because this neighborhood, it has more tales than just one Karen, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. Asterisk.